Hello again. I'm George Escobar, and I'm moderating this amazing panel. I think this is the first for CWVFF. And I am not experienced in this at all. I am dangerously knowledgeable because I've read and watched all these YouTube videos, but I'm not a practitioner. So I'm really excited to meet these professionals. I think, are we going to show a video first? Photos? Okay, all right. When we talk about volume stage, LED walls, that's such a weird sounding set of names. But hopefully these images will allow you to see some of the work that we're going to be talking about. Will that just be playing all along? Well, okay, good. So you could use that as a reference if you need to, guys. The way we're going to go about this is each of these gentlemen is going to introduce themselves, a little bit about their background, and then I will ask a couple of questions first, just to level set the ground, and then I'm going to go through the questions that you guys have posted. So, Mike, go. Yeah, Mike, you're first.
My name's Ed Lamberg. I am an owner of Big Studio Group, which is also with this guy over here, as well as VPS Group, which is Virtual Production Solution. So I've been in working camera and DP work for about 30 years now, and for the last 5 years we've been working with virtual production.
Everybody, I'm Brandon Hollingsworth, Chief Creative Officer and Chief Operations Officer with Brainy Pixel Productions, a Christian animation and production studio, and we've been blessed to actually be a provider for many 3D assets that go onto these volume stages, and hopefully we'll get to do more of that in the future.
Good afternoon. My name's Andy Lorenz. I'm a film lighting technician out of Atlanta, Georgia. Gaff, electric, grip, been there, done that. Camera operator, PA, one day. I didn't make it. One day was enough. So a lot of this stuff is from productions in Atlanta over the last 8 years to give you an idea of some of the stuff that the volumetric can be used for, because it's hard to tell sometimes. Wish I had Ed's career.
So what I want to do is just go through each of the workflow and where you participate in that. Sometimes you're in all of it, but the main thing that the folks here need to know, how do you even begin to plan for this and use this technology for their films? I guess we should start with Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah. So for my part or our part in what we do with virtual production, it really begins as early as possible. And so for the folks in the room that are thinking about pursuing virtual production, I would encourage the directors and the DPs and your art departments to begin having those conversations very early, because the sooner you can begin talking about that with the provider of your digital assets, the better. So for instance, we were on a film where we were asked to actually match some real world assets. We were able to create digital assets using art department drawings, and then later on the actual physical objects that they made that were going to be used as foreground elements in the shot. So absolutely as early as possible. As soon as you can bring your virtual production people in, start helping them get inside the headspace of what you want to do, help you envision what you're trying to bring to life, the better, because they can let you know where the technical hurdles might be.
So from your deliverables, it would go to Ed, right? And what would you do with it?
Well, we look at things from the standpoint of, unfortunately, budget is usually your first item on the list, and that is, can shooting something in a practical environment outweigh the cost of shooting it on a virtual environment? And so usually, especially in films, being able to bring stuff on stage and therefore using elements from Brennan or even plates that are shot in the environments that you want can be projected on those walls. That gives your actors more time to be able to hit those marks, to be able to hit those lines the way that you want them to be done. So it gives you a big advantage of being able to control that environment, control your time, and not have to move a whole company, 5 times to get a couple of things and elements that you need. So I look at this as like back in the 40s when they were shooting films, Brennan was the painter that painted the flats that you'd see. If you've ever watched Gunsmoke on TV, most of the time they're driving up, on the horses, and it's a front of a barn, and everything's painted behind them. And you see it now, but I remember as a kid, I never noticed it.
Hey, Ed, look at the audience. I think there's 3 people that've seen Gunsmoke.
Yeah, they don't know Gunsmoke. Yeah. Oh, look at it. See, they do. Anyway, back in the 40s, I wasn't there either, but looking at those old movies, it moved to green screen. And then from green screen's not fun to use because actors can't interact with that environment. They don't see what's there. And so LED does bring a whole different world back into production on stage, bring the world back on stage. I think that's kind of the thought. So it's like what Brendan said.
There was actually a precursor to green screen, which is rear screen projection and front screen projection for a lot of Alfred Hitchcock films. He used that technique quite a bit. So I want to know, why would you even want to use this technology for a movie like Flight Risk? Don't they just want to stay up in the air the whole time for like 90% of the movie? Tell us what happens now that you've got the plates, you've shot the plates.
Yeah, so I tend to handle most of the stuff on the day of shooting. These guys handle all the prep work, all the brains behind the footage, because filming in a car is not fun. Those that have tried to do home videos with family, kids, not fun. Be serious. I don't wanna. Same thing, it's actors, same thing. And crew, camera operators. You'll see an airplane in front of a volumetric. That is from Flight Risk, which we did year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Most of my job is the power for everybody, and then the lighting on the day. So depending on the budget size, hey bud, good to see you. Depending on budget, they'll have other departments within lighting that will actually handle it. On Flight Risk, we were a pretty small crew. There were 3 of us for like the first 2 weeks, and then we brought in more people later on because we had a little bit of prep time. But what was your actual question? Oh, why shoot in an airplane? Well, safety, changing the mag, actors needing to go to the bathroom, camera guys needing to go to the bathroom, snacks. There's only so much room for crafty in a real airplane. So for them, the choice was go on a hydraulic lift system, which if you see the airplane thing, it's going to roll through sooner or later. It was 12 feet off the ground to the airplane, and they could spin the plane 360. So being able to do that for 5 weeks on their budget, that was way easier than trying to go like a Tom Cruise thing and go up in a real airplane and feel the real gravity. So for them logistically, that was the key, was, hey, this makes the best option. There are movies that do it on green screen, rear projection.
Could you freeze that? Yeah. If you could just go back.
Yeah.
So this is a film directed by Mel Gibson, starring Mark Wahlberg. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
And his bald head.
And what?
And his bald head.
Oh, yeah.
Did the bald head get separate billing?
I think
Describe
it should.
what they're looking at there.
Yeah, so about 45 feet high. All the footage was shot ahead of time by our cinematographer, so Ed would know those dynamics better than I would because I'm not there for the pre-shooting, but it's actual airplanes and helicopters shooting footage. And then this was just the easiest way to fake it, to allow the actors to have a shorter period of time in a plane. And we all know air conditioning, this is just easier on everybody, even though you got to climb up the stairs all day.
Yeah, and actually that video was really good. I'm going off script here, George. So that video is a really good thing that we discovered that the DP didn't really think about when we were on set. Is that when you think about these volumetric stages, they're essentially a massive LED screen. They're a giant TV. You can think of them like that. So they're also by default a huge light source. Right, so as you're thinking about the shots that you want, you need to be thinking about this giant screen that's going to be emitting light that you're going to have to deal with, right? As you're dealing with other lights on set, with your camera, the lenses that you're selecting, filters, things of that nature. So all of that there's a tremendous amount of pre-coordination that you want to be really, really smart with. And you don't want to wait until you get everybody on set, all these expensive people, all this expensive equipment before you're figuring all that stuff out on the day of.
So there's a 20-minute or so making of Flight Risk on YouTube. It's
There is?
amazing. You got to see that, and it really is.
No, I haven't seen any
You haven't
behind
seen
the scenes. I did like a 2-hour interview, and I haven't seen anything.
I
I
think
was behind the scenes.
I think you might. I think you might have been in that, or is that Mark Wahlberg? I can't tell.
He has more hair than me.
Okay, so obviously you're looking at that and tell yourself, wow, those are big scale productions. That looks really expensive. And how can we bring this back down to what is affordable? So here's the first question. Is there a way to do an LED wall on a budget, or is it only for big productions? Who wants to tackle that profound question?
I can, and I'm sure some of these other guys will have something, but one of the films that we were blessed to be a part of, we were, again, providing the digital assets to the guy who was running the virtual wall and working the virtual cameras. And I'm not joking, this guy's day job was he drove around with a van with a bunch of 60-inch LED screens, and he would set them up for like weddings and birthday parties and things of that nature. That was his day gig. He used these screens and he would set them up and build his own wall, right, into a certain configuration. He had multiple configurations, and he would do these things for like, photo ops, generally speaking. But he got on this film and he was kind of on the cheap, right? He was affordable in terms of this budget, and he provided a temporary LED wall for us to shoot against, and it worked great. You can't tell now that you're looking at the finished film. So this is within the realm of something that an indie production could do if you can afford, say, 6 or 10 LED monitors. So it is something you can do. It's technically challenging, but it can be done.
So could that possibly be, let's say you're trying to get a hospital location with a big hallway, and you just use your Best Buy 100-inch screen behind you, and you're dressed as a nurse or a doctor, and you're looking at a patient or whatever, and then in the background is that plate. You might have filmed that. Would that work?
It worked for us. So people have seen the film and they can't tell that place is not that place. So they think it's real.
Yeah.
So.
Ed, you got any advice for?
Yeah, that would be a little bit more, that would be really low budget. But I would say that there are ways of doing it at a smaller scale than what you're there, which could, it's just the amount of LED that you would end up using, and therefore using the plates. So there's ways of shooting that if you want to shoot your master shots in a bigger location, so you have your wide shots and you have your actors moving into that, but you want to get into dialogue into those areas, you just don't have the time to be there, and you want to do that more on stage. That's where just even using a smaller volume, just a wall, can help you get the angles that you want, but you have to go and shoot your plates in those locations or even have them created. So there's ways of doing it that you don't have to be on a gigantic 30-foot tall stage with LED all the way around you and an airplane in the middle. It's just a matter of how much time are you going to need to spend in a location, or is it could be like a fantasy type of situation where you need to have the plates made because it's just the location doesn't exist. So you can be in a smaller scale and still get what you need to get, and it's very, very believable.
And there's a trade-off here as well. You've got that front-end expense of buying the monitors or whatever, but it can pay dividends on the back end when you're doing your actual shoot. So there's not anywhere you can go on the planet where you can get, the golden hour for 6 hours of the day, right? But you can do that with a virtual stage, right? You can just basically freeze the sun, right, and say, I don't want the sun to move. I want this perfect lighting condition. I don't have to worry about the weather or wind or a train going by every 15 minutes. And I want to get these shots because they're important to my film. So if you, as you're again in that pre-production process where you're pacing out your film and you're trying to figure out where do we really need to spend our dollars, you can do this, and you can do it, and basically it'll pay for itself, I would think.
So I want to ask Anthony about the distinction between, what is it? Andy.
You can call me anything. I've been called many things in my life.
Andy, or is it
Things
Mark?
I won't repeat.
What's the distinction, or when do you make a decision on whether you're using a green screen or this technology? Because, we're so used to green screen and
So I have the bonus. I don't have to make those decisions. I get told what we're doing, and then I get to go, well, you need all this to make it happen. Flight risk example. We were filming in a band practice stage. Not a lot of power. That LED wall fit a Cessna. Granted, they cut 7 feet off the wings, but it fit an airplane. But it didn't have enough power for us, so we had to run 2 generators the entire time. So we still did a couple moments with blue screen and green screen. Primarily, we put it on the wall. But even when we're doing blue screen, green screen, from our perspective, we're doing the lighting. For us, the problem becomes the prep and the planning. If you don't know what you're getting and you're not maximizing your time, then we're wasting your money because we don't have any options. So, they're talking about, shooting a wide shot. There's TV shows. Lightgear has some great, really long format videos came out during the shutdown, during the COVID shutdown stuff, where it was like 2-3 hour videos with gaffers and cinematographers and key grips on shows. They talk about shooting a wide shot, and then it's noisy, it's under an overpass. They go back to stage and they shoot green screen, and then they've already shot the plates when they were there. They didn't shoot any scene there, 2 people sitting in a car, but now the whole crew doesn't have to sit there. So from my end, it's all about the decisions more important people make, we got to deal with the consequences of. So if you're looking at not wasting money listening to guys that have companies that know how to maximize your funds, you want to use it, you have a limited time, maybe you have some budget and you're like, well, I want to shoot an entire movie in a boat. How often in a boat are you looking out the little small portholes? Is it important to have a video wall there? Is it important to have any video there? Is it just blown out? Are you underwater? All those types of things should enter. If you're conceptualizing an entire project, you still got to think about where people plugging in their phones. You still got to think about all the other dynamics. And that helps you maybe in your concept eliminating like, well, you know what, maybe I don't need a 45-foot high by 280-degree wall. I sold my car to make this movie. My car is not going to pay for that. Maybe I just need this, but I only have the actor for yay much time. Maybe I can shoot all this other stuff with a lookalike because the actor's overseas on something else, and we can get some plate footage and have an 8-foot by 8-foot wall. It all comes down to logistics.
So from a production crew perspective and sort of your crew base, or even additional training and learning for crew, how does this change that makeup or the training or the people that you would bring onto your production if you're committed to using the volume? Anybody can talk about that?
Well, I'll add this. It does, lighting is different for lighting LED. You don't want to light the wall, you want to light the subjects. So if you're used to doing a documentary type of film and you're putting up magic cloth and shooting a big source through it and it just looks beautiful and soft, you're not going to want to do that in front of an LED wall, but you can still achieve the same outcome. You just have to change a little bit of how you light it. You agree?
Yeah, and there's also the misnomer of you don't need to light when you use volumetric.
Not as much,
So-
correct. That's correct, yep.
Yeah, and I think I would add, build in some time for your director and your DP to play, right? Because what's going to happen is they're going to roll in and they're going to have this awesome volume stage thing going on.
Don't let them play.
No, you need to let them play. If you're the technical guy who's like, hey, we need to make this smoke move a different way, and I'm talking about real-time stuff, right? We've done some real-time stuff. Like, I don't want that smoke blowing across the horizon at that point, right? You need to let the DP and the director get in there and just really play around with it, look around and see how it's going to behave, set up some shots, let them get a feel for it, because they're going to want to tinker, right? That's every director and every DP on the planet. They're going to want to play with it and make it their own. So build in some test time for them to get in there and play, because you're going to need to shift some things. And then for our perspective, again, we were also working with the art department, and we had some foreground elements, and like we were putting down sand on the ground, and to make it look like the foreground was blending in seamlessly with the background. And that took a little bit of time, getting that proper, the pitch of the stage so that it looked like it transitioned seamlessly into the horizon. That took a little bit of time. So build in a little extra time. It's not like it's plug and play. You're not going to roll something in there, plug it in, it's going to be perfect immediately. You're going to have to tinker with it.
So I want to expand a little bit more. You used that word real time. And then the plates that were used for flight risk, that was actual footage shot on location. You went out to the mountains and got those shots versus rendering those, using maybe the Unreal Game Engine as the platform by which the models actually sit. Those are two different things, right? So expand on that a little bit more, sort of the perils or pitfalls or the promise of mix and match or avoid one versus the other.
Well, I'll let these guys talk about the live action plates because I don't really know anything about that. But I will say that when you're talking about the Unreal Game Engine and you're talking about real-time rendering, it's a little bit of a misnomer unless you just have a massive computer system, right? You think about the documentaries you may have seen for The Mandalorian. Disney is famous for not really pioneering this, but they kind of really made it famous. And they're doing a lot of real-time stuff where they've got, mountains they're sliding into view, and the sun and the moon, they're changing the sky and all that stuff. And it's really, really fast. It's like instantaneous. But they've got a massive computer system that's running that thing. So the real-time rendering in Unreal is supposed to be for video games. And we all know, when we talk about video games, the level of quality, generally speaking, of those assets, right? The 3D assets in that game space. And even the best games out there can be glitchy, right? they're not always real time. They have issues from time to time. That problem compounds the more photoreal you go, right? The more photoreal you go, the models get heavier, which means they're much, much larger files, and it takes time for the Unreal Game Engine and the computer to process those in real time. So you can have a little bit of real-time rendering issues, right? So again, that goes back to pre-planning. Knowing exactly what you want to shoot on the day is really important when it comes to real-time, because if you can create a pre-rendered solution, even if it's movement in the background, but you can render that ahead of time and just play it like a video file, that's going to be a much more predictable, better way to go than trying to do something in real time. You're going to run into some problems there.
Yeah, and I'll add to that it's also very expensive. It's huge. So, and if you're going to work in that environment, you also have to get the motion tracking as well for your camera to track within that environment. So it's great technology, but it is expensive, and that's where plates tend to be.
What makes
really
it
great.
expensive? What are the elements that?
The technology itself,
Just
but
using
also
it
the
and
art.
equipping it.
I mean, just for them to create that model,
Right.
many times is going to take a lot of time and a lot of money.
specialized people. You got to have a really
Yes.
smart Unreal guy or gal there who knows Unreal inside and out, who understands, that virtual camera system and the way it moves and the way it pairs to your live camera. All that's very technically, it's a big technical lift, and it's doable, but you got to have a really big brain in the room, or a couple of big brains in the room. So, and those typically don't come for just pizza, right? You got to put a little money behind it.
So they just ran a video there with a massive green screen behind it and these Roman columns in the foreground. That seems like that's the ideal solution for that, because if you try to build a 200-foot LED wall, there goes maybe your entire budget.
Every job, that was a jungle set with trees in front of a volumetric. So that's why you see these random things. These are either green screens, rear screen projection, translights, which is, stuff that we still use. It's just a bunch of different options. Every project is different. No answer is the same every time. Every single thing you do is going to have a different challenge and a different perspective. So, yeah, that's not an LED wall. That is a giant poster. I mean, it's a translight, but
Commercial for motion sickness, that's what that is.
Hey, look, I plug in cell phones and coffee. I don't do cameras. So they're talking about that footage side exit. So I know I don't deal with the footage ahead of time. I watch it after they've done a little color correction. So flight risk is the most recent thing I can point to because it was the last time I did it. I know they had 1 to 2 days to shoot all of the footage. So they had an airplane following an airplane. They had a helicopter, 12 cameras. I don't know how many. It's all way above my pay grade. How it does affect me is in their footage, they go from sunny to cloudy, morning to nighttime. The whole movie takes place in 1 day. In the movie, they reference directly where they're flying up the coast of Alaska. I got to know where the sun's supposed to be. They got to make sure with the footage that the footage is going the right direction. I mean, planes going this way, the mountains are also going this way. You know, they have to work out all those logistics. Lighting side then comes in and we have to go, oh, this is where the clouds come in. How are we adjusting for camera? Because our goal is not to be noticed. If we do our job well, you don't even go, hey, great lighting. You're just like, oh, it was a good movie. If you go, oh, it's bad lighting, then, you know, we don't want you to see the lighting. So,
Is there a growing library of these stock footage plates that people can now license or purchase, or that way they don't have to go to Alaska? Is that
There is, especially for driving scenes. There's a couple.
more about that.
Yeah, there's a couple of websites that actually have libraries for driving where they'll at least shoot about 9 angles, all locked in time code, so that if you're going to shoot different angles of a car driving scene on an LED, you can just put up that scene, shoot this side, flip the car around.
which they did the same thing back in the day with TV shows. There's guys in big cities with helicopters that would shoot big sweeping sunset shots.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
could go and buy.
Yeah, so there are, but you also get frustrated, like I have many times, trying to find a stock footage. I just need this one video, and somebody's moving the camera like this, and they're pushing in, and I just need a locked shot. Just please give me a locked shot for, 20 seconds. And that can be difficult, but it's easy just to take a camera and go shoot it.
You can do that too? Yeah.
And on the 3D side, George, there are lots of marketplaces out there. Unreal Engine has a very large one. It actually just transitioned to a website called fab.com. But I would caution you in that a lot of the assets that are there, you need to be very, very careful about what you're purchasing and make sure in terms of resolution, in terms of the file size that you're getting, that it's what you really want, right? Because there are a lot of rather cheap models out there. But a lot of this stuff's free. So, I mean, on the 3D side, you can find a lot of really high quality 4 or 8K texture type assets that are basically free. So you can try this stuff.
Did they come in pairs, the model and the texture? Or, okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, the models typically have textures, but
You can buy
that's the
more.
quality at most of the film stuff that's being done right now on the 3D side.
So here's a question that has 16 thumbs up, which is, what are the important limitations of this technology? And I want to frame that a little bit more. Limitations not on all the things that we've talked about, which is it's really expensive, and so you may look for, but things like where can you actually place your camera so that it doesn't get the Mori effect and the dot pitch size, and like you talked a little bit about lighting. So give us a sense of all of these other things that you have to consider. It's not just plug and play. Yep.
I'll start. So a couple of the things are, like you mentioned, the pitch of the pixel itself. When Mandalorian came out, it was mainly event usage is what they had LED for. So they were using LEDs that were mainly for big events, live events. It wasn't made to look great on camera. It was just made to look good far away. So they had to deal with a lot of limitations at that time. Now, technology's gotten better. We've even made advancements to that technology as well, so it looks better on camera. But smaller your pixel is, the less you're going to deal with the moire. The reflection problems, a lot of the event tiles were made shiny. They weren't made with a matte finish on them, so they just, everything reflected off of them. You'd put a light up here, and the light, you see the light and reflection in the back of the wall. So those are some basic ones, as well as the scan rate, how fast the scan is on the wall, how fast the refresh rate is on the wall. And we're making a lot of leaps and bounds in that technology as well. So those are just some of the limitations.
So those scan rates have to
Not
match.
every LED is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those things have to match with the capacity, capability of the camera.
Plus, you got to make sure that you're on the same frame rate.
Right.
So if your processor isn't processing at the same frame rate, or it doesn't work properly, there's Brompton Technologies that's the go-to, because they can gen lock the camera and the wall together. So there's all kinds of different things that can be done in that.
Yeah, and I'll just give a shout out for the guys at Big Studio Group. They've got amazing walls there. So if you're looking for somebody, take a trip up to Hendersonville. I would say from our perspective on the asset providing side, it's really about finding the right model at the right resolution, at the right quality level that you need. And that can be tricky, and sometimes you might have to mod an existing model that you find that maybe you like, or have a new one made from scratch. And again, that can be pricey, so just bear that in mind. But from our perspective, that's kind of the big challenges.
Andy, did you have anything? Because I've got a question that.
I mean, it's an interesting question, because I view it from, if you're focusing on using the technology over making a good story, you're off the deep end already. So this goes with all the new, look, I love this stuff. I love light. I love lamp. Like, lighting is one of my favorite things to do. It's so fun to just make things pretty, make things ugly, give you an emotional feel. But sometimes we get so obsessed with, hey, I got this new light that's got 4,000 billion different colors it can do, and it's like, well, yeah, but
Are you
I can
talking
also.
to all the guys that are here?
No, I'm just saying, like,
The young men?
I enjoyed doing all the stuff that you see here, volumetric wise. But the limitation to me is still the limitation that applies everywhere. If you're walking around all day like this, you got a technology problem. This is great technology for the right usage. And so to me, it's the reverse of, okay, do I just want to use the volumetric, or do I want to use it right? Is this the right place to use it? So I don't know if that's the answer, but it was just a different thought.
No, that's a great answer and consideration, because and I was partially kidding, because a lot of young people, especially the young guys, they get so caught up in the technology that they use that as an excuse for not working on the story.
I mean, I
And
get
it's
it.
really dangerous.
I get it. Like Star Wars, we've had movies come out that have had just groundbreaking technology. Like if you look into the history of the Fisher Dolly and the Pee Wee Dolly and where the concept came from, that technology, mind-boggling. And nowadays we just look at it like, do we really need a dolly? Can we just get some, like a skateboard?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy working on it when the planning is done correctly. It can be really fun for everybody involved and make things move faster when the planning is there and when it fits the situation, lighting in a, I don't know if any Harry Potter movies are doing this. I don't know what people are doing outside of what I've seen in the behind the scenes I've watched. But you might have a project where it's like, man, the only way we can do this is by doing the volumetric. So then you got to go, okay, let's make sure the story's good, and then let's figure out what technology can serve that story.
Come on, Andy, my final shot has to be in the volcano. It's got to be there.
So
Okay.
I want to ask a question from a slightly different perspective. With technology sort of in service of the story, but how does, from your observation, how has this affected the performance of the actors? How does this improve or detract from what they're trying to accomplish?
Motion sickness. So look, Ed knows, if you're 10 feet in the air in a fake airplane and it starts moving, because that's what that stupid hydraulic arm was doing, it could spin the plane, it could tip to where the wing was 4 feet off the ground. When you get up in there and it's just doing a little bit of motion, or you're in a car and there's LED in front of you, LED beside you, you legitimately feel like you're moving and you can be sitting still. So for some actors, they love it. Some, they keep a barf bag under the chair. Because then you see people walking around you right there. So Ed can have the serious answers.
I would say from our perspective, it's enhanced performances, generally speaking, because the actors are referencing something that they can see. I mean, I know that actors use their imagination, that's their kind of stock and trade, but having something that's there, right, especially in terms of direction, it's like, oh, okay, well, there's the sun, right? Okay, I get it. So it's enhanced performances generally from our perspective.
Yeah, performance, but also you get the opportunity to not have to go into post and add it in green screen and try to match it. So being able to capture something in camera is also a huge advantage.
And I'll do a quick footnote. Depending on how integrated your actors are with your process, right? If you can show them pre-production, stills, or you can show them pre-production animatics of what it's going to look like, that also can really help them start to get into the headspace of, oh, okay, that's what that volcano scene's going to be. I got it. I'm going to start getting prepared for that.
So, got a question here. Make sure it doesn't go away. What skills should the young filmmakers here at CWVFF be developing in order to employ this in the future? Hopefully the near future.
I would say, obviously, focus on the story, as Andy said earlier, always. And as we've heard over and over again in the conference so far, is that we need to focus on those stories, but also start getting informed, right? I think one of the opportunities that we have in the Christian space is we're not quite so far behind as usual with this technology, right? Oftentimes we're about 10 to 15 years behind the curve, and I think we're catching up quicker when it comes to virtual production. So learn as much as you can, ask questions, and network with people who are doing this, right? Volunteer to be on set, just to be around this stuff and learn. Just so you can start hearing the terms, the jargon, see how it works in real life, because I'm so glad George asked to have some visuals up here, because it's hard to get your head around, even in a space like this. But it's even harder when it's even easier when you go to a virtual stage and you see what you can really do. It really kind of opens up your mind as to the possibilities.
There's a question. Oh,
They were laughing at me. You didn't get to see it.
Well, that's performance.
Can I see it later?
So I'm not sure what this question is about, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it because it must be important to 11 people in the room, which is, can you film real explosions without damaging the screen? Are you going to blow up the screen, or is it the light source? Or I don't
understand the question.
I don't
Are you
either.
exploding something real, or?
It says, can you film real explosions without damaging the screen? Who raised that question and asked? Anybody care to?
Nobody's going to
Okay,
claim it.
there you go. There's the guy.
CW. Woo woo. So you're talking about like having a practical pyrotechnic in the same room with the screen. That's a definitely
That's a
Ed
different question. Yeah.
Well, I can
a good
answer.
question,
I can
though.
answer
Really
that
good.
like this.
Yeah.
So we worked on a Netflix movie, White Noise, and they wanted rain on the car, and the wall was right next to the car, putting reflections on it, and they ruined the screen because they let it rain on the screen. So that would be don't explode anything next to it because it will break. So that would be a CG thing I would think you'd want to add later. So yeah, I mean that's.
Unless you have a really
That's
big
good
budget, and if so, blow it all up.
Which We have had squib hits and stuff on cars. If people are in a car and they don't want to shoot it on location because of whoever the actor is or whatever, we've done small effects. Yeah. But in generally, the entire side facing wherever the small explosions are is completely protected because that LED wall is so expensive. So
We did the rain. We
Yeah.
just had to let the crew know, don't let it get on the wall. You just keep it over here. So it's just a matter of where you focus it. But I wouldn't explode a cannonball in front of it.
So one technique that we're all actually fascinated and we've all probably seen are miniatures, especially in Lord of the Rings. People don't realize how much miniature work was involved in that. Has that sort of filtered or factored into some of the work that you guys have done, especially some of those plates, using miniatures rather than going out on location? Or you can pioneer it here because nobody's done it yet.
So First Man, you can see some of this. That was a first landing on the moon thing. They actually did bigatures and miniatures, and they're also using live action footage as well as CG footage depending on where the camera is and where it's looking. So they did rockets taking off that were my height, filmed on a stage that was really tall with volumetric to add to the effect. So there's a whole, I mean, take your toy airplane in front of the TV nowadays. You know, there is the capability of doing that. That's the only job I've been on that's had volumetric and bigature miniature type stuff. But I mean, it works, but it all comes down to, again, the planning side of things. So they test it, they calculate how big things need to be. There's an image of a little house with like a sunsetty vibe that pops up. It'll pop up at some point from one of the Marvel shows. They built this house and it was maybe 7 feet wide. We didn't use a volumetric, they used a backdrop and a sand and foam. So it all comes down to like, yeah, there would be CG footage like he's talking about, pre-rendered spinning moon footage flying by the airplane, or the spaceship, excuse me. So, Ed, have you done any miniature stuff? I was actually wondering myself. No?
I have not, no. I mean, the closest thing, like, one of the things we did was, it was a Disney movie Crater. So these kids are driving a moon rover around the moon. So that was Unreal on a screen in front of that rover. It was very simple. I mean, it was a big movie, but I mean, it was just a simple thing to do, but they literally were able to drive it. And of course, the rover was all on like a remote
Gimbal?
access, yeah, gimbal, and it moved for the kids, and they just went scene after scene.
I think this is just a clear call for the Christian space to do more fantasy and sci-fi. What do y'all say?
Amen. I'm a good dwarf.
Here's a creative question. How does real-time rendering in a virtual production environment affect the director's and cinematographers' creative control? Creative control.
So I would say it kind of opens it up. It really gives them a large amount of control, although I'm not sure that's really what you want to do. I don't know if you want to give them that measure of control, because they can kind of go crazy with it. I'll give you an example. So one of the films that we were on, we had a lot of pre-production conversations with the DP and the director, and we told them ahead of time, like, hey, once we kind of get this locked off and we know exactly what you want, we're just going to build what you see, right? We're not going to build the entire universe, the entire 3D universe, because you don't have the budget for that. So we understand their camera shots, their angles, exactly what their framing is, what they want to see in the lens, and that's all we go build. We don't build anything else. Immediately, first thing that happens is the DP comes in and says, oh, I want to climb a ladder and put the camera up here and point down like this, and we're like, no, you cannot do that, right? That was not part of what you asked us to build, so nothing exists over there, right? It's just black. So sometimes when you give them this kind of full control, it can run off the rails. So
I will add this as well. Even when shooting plates, you have to pre-plan all of that. And we just shot some plates last night, or yesterday morning, actually, and the interesting thing is that you could put your stand-ins in and say, okay, this is where we're going to shoot, this is what that's going to look like. But when you get back on the screen, you look at it and you go, now you can actually light this. It actually turns out you can have a little bit more cinematic control because you're not having to bring all this lighting or negative fill out in the daytime, so to speak. So it does give you more control in some ways, but where it doesn't give you control is if you didn't plan for that shot to be at this level, you can't just go change it very easily because that plate's been shot a certain way. So there is some, and it's just about planning.
Andy, this question, I want you to answer this from the perspective of flight risk, okay? The question is, what are the primary saving benefits of virtual production, and at what budget level does it become a viable alternative? So for flight risk, they could have, actually flew up there for days and hours.
Well, I mean, there's other movies that have shot with translights. There's a Tom Cruise movie from years ago, a sci-fi, where they projected Oblivion. Perfect example. So, I mean, granted, that's huge. Flight risk was not, it's huge to what we would consider huge. It's like a $25 million job. That's huge in some aspects, but in the realm of film, that's pennies compared to, Marvel productions and stuff. So, is the question still up there so I can make sure
what are the primary cost-saving benefits of virtual production?
In reality, to me, it always comes down to does this technology best serve your product? Like I was saying, you're doing a movie in an airplane, shooting in a real airplane in the air. Yes, you could do it. Is it going to be the most fun ever for everybody? Probably not. Logistically, a nightmare. Safety-wise, a nightmare. So in that situation, it is a cost-saving benefit. There are movies that have done green screen, rear screen projection. You can do it other ways too, but they also have their negatives and positives. Shooting on green screen, the show I was on in the fall, they have their in-house CG group that does all their computer graphics, one of the big studios. It's like $5,000 a shot for them to do a very minor adjustment. That's how they calculate, is they go, oh, you want to put that green screen there? $5,000. You want to do that there? $5,000. So it all comes with a cost. So to me, it comes down to if you want to do something really cool, you want to shoot in a submarine. Well, you don't need it. If you have something that is essential to your story, and this would be a good technology, then look into it and see how big do you need to go, where do you need to go. These guys are great contacts that have access to stages that are permanently built with LED wall stuff. So, we have one in Atlanta that films their rent for a day, 2 days, a week. That just shot a whole movie there. I don't know if it was a whole movie, but same thing, 4 or 5 weeks. The flight risk stage was a pure build just for our movie. It's not there. They built it in a week and a half, along with the airplane coming in and getting rigged. And then we shot, and then they took it down in a week. So
Ed's got a story that he wants to share about this.
I'll keep it quick because I know we got to go. This is more of a story of when is it not practical.
Sure.
But it happens to do with my business partner's good friend used to be head of NBC, and he was telling us a story that they bought $30 million of tile, of panels, to build a volume. And if you've watched, it's one of the Star Trek, Discovery, CBS. Discovery, yeah. So the Star Trek Discovery was shot on this volume, so all of those great shots that you see in space and looking out the windows is all that. But even the studio couldn't justify after a while that this is not viable. It's not even viable for them. Mm-hmm. So they were stretching their budgets out to 2035 just to justify shooting on it. So it can be done on a smaller budget for sure, and it can be done practically, and that's what we're all here to hear about. Yeah.
Well, we only have, I think, 3 minutes, so you each get a minute to tell any really critical information that we haven't asked or we haven't discussed yet. So
I would just say if you're considering using this technology, just make sure you know exactly what shots you need it for. You're probably not going to need it for your whole movie. You're probably going to need it for 3 shots maybe. And if you have the budget, then yeah, go explore and try it out. If not, then keep grinding it out as the indie awesome folks that you guys are.
Andy, do you have anything?
I would say, even to add to what Brendan was saying, once you know what your story is, some of it you may be able to use it a lot. I mean, it just depends on the story. But make your story the primary concern.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like something super deep. Like I've definitely proven that I am a wealth of depth. Oh, man, I was hoping for the noodle.
There it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, dream big, plan hard, and tell stories that actually impact.
New Christian Worldview shirt right there.
Well,
How do you hashtag at? No, I mean, dream, think it up, and then get creative. Research. I mean, y'all got cell phones. There's a YouTube. Oh, did you hear YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook? We're talking about a merger. They're going to call it YouTwitface. YouTube, fantastic for finding stuff. So much, yes, Justin, you've heard that joke before, and it's still funny.
so gentlemen, I'm prepping for a streaming series called Prairie Winds. Takes place in the 1870s. Vast frontier plain, cabin interior, and all that stuff. Now I know who not to call. No, just kidding. Now I know exactly who I'll be contacting for this. Thank you so much. You guys are a great knowledge base. Thank you.